Matthew was an ordinary student who liked to play football and video games with his friends. He was friendly and cheerful. Everyone loved him, but one day everything changed. It was Friday afternoon and Matthew stayed up late at school to finish a project. He went to the bathroom before leaving, but when he tried to open the door, he found it locked. He screamed for help, but no one heard him. He was trapped inside the bathroom. He tried to call his parents, but his phone had no signal. He hit the door, but it was too thick. He looked for a window, but there was none. He was lonely and scared. He sat on the floor and waited for someone to come. He hoped that his parents would notice his absence and come in search of him. He hoped that the janitor would check the bathroom and find him. He hoped that someone would save him. But no one came. As the hours passed, Matthew became more and more terrified. He heard strange sounds in the bathroom, such as whispers and growls. He felt a cool breeze on his neck despite the lack of ventilation. He saw shadows moving on the walls, although there was no light. He felt that he was not alone. He tried to ignore the noise and shadows, but they grew louder and darker. He felt as if something was watching him, something evil and hungry. He felt that something was waiting for him, something he wanted to hurt. He began to cry and pray, but no one heard him. At 11 o'clock, his parents finally arrived at school. They were worried about getting sick when he didn't come home or answer his phone. They called his friends and teachers, but no one knows where he is. They searched everywhere, even remembered the bathroom. They ran to the bathroom and tried to open the door, but it was locked. They heard Matthew's voice inside, but it sounded strange and distorted. They heard him say things like, "Leave me alone, get out of my head, and it hurts." They panicked and asked for help. The janitor came with a key and opened the door. They saw Matthew lying on the ground, covered in blood. His eyes were black and bleeding, and his mouth was twisted in a cry. He looked at them with hatred and fear. He said one word: "Help." The next day, Matthew woke up in a hospital bed. He did not remember what happened in the bathroom or why he was injured. Remember only the feeling of cold and fear, hearing a voice in his head. A voice said, "I am a legion because we are many." He didn't know what that meant, but he felt a chill in his spine. He looked around and saw his parents sitting next to him. They seemed relieved and happy to see him awake. They hugged him and told him they loved him. They also told him something else. They told him that he was possessed by a demon. They told him that they had brought a priest to expel him. They told him that he hit some of his friends with pens and forks while owning. They told him that he locked them in the bathroom or in the classroom. They told him that he scared everyone at school with his behavior. They told him that he was lucky to be alive. Matthew didn't believe what they were saying. He couldn't believe he did those things. He could not believe that he was possessed by a demon. He felt guilty and ashamed. He felt anger and fear. He felt lonely and confused. He didn't know what to do or say. He just wanted to forget everything. But he couldn't. The following week, Matthew returned to school. He expected everyone to hate or fear him, but instead they welcomed him back with kindness and sympathy. They said that they understood that it was not his fault, that he was sick and needed help. They said that they were glad that he was better now, that he was the same again. They said they were still his friends. Matthew appreciated their words, but did not feel their warmth. He felt like a stranger among them. He felt that he no longer belonged there. He felt like he had changed. He no longer likes football or video games. He no longer smiles or laughs. He no longer talks or jokes. He became calm and withdrawn. He became sad and depressed. He became lonely and isolated. It was a school trip gone wrong. A group of students and their teacher were on their way to visit a museum when their bus broke down in the middle of nowhere. They had no cell phone signal and no idea when help would arrive. They decided to explore the area and look for shelter. They found an old school building nearby that looked abandoned and creepy. They thought it would be fun to check it out and maybe find some clues about its history. They entered the school and split up into smaller groups. They wandered around the dusty halls and classrooms, looking for anything interesting. They found old books, papers, photos, and trophies. They also found signs of vandalism and decay. Some of them felt uneasy and wanted to leave, but others were curious and wanted to stay longer. They didn't notice that the sun was setting and the darkness was creeping in. They also didn't notice that they were not alone. There were other things in the school that were watching them, waiting for them, hunting them. They were the ghosts of the students who had died in the school long ago. They had been trapped there for decades, unable to move on. They were angry and bitter, and they hated the living. They started to attack the students one by one, dragging them into the shadows, torturing them, killing them. They used their supernatural powers to manipulate the environment, locking doors, breaking windows, cutting off lights. They also used their voices to lure the students into traps, mimicking their friends or the teacher, calling for help or saying they had found a way out. The students realized too late that they were in danger. They tried to regroup and escape, but they couldn't find each other or the exit. They were lost and scared, and they knew they were going to die. The teacher was the last one alive. He had managed to avoid the ghosts until then, but he knew he couldn't hide forever. He heard a voice coming from a nearby classroom. It sounded like one of his students. He followed the voice and entered the classroom. He saw a girl sitting on a desk, holding a bloody knife. She looked at him with a twisted smile and said, "Welcome to our school." She stabbed him in the chest and laughed. The teacher fell to the floor, bleeding and gasping for air. He looked around and saw the bodies of the students lying on the desks and chairs. They had been mutilated and dismembered by the ghosts. He felt a cold hand touch his face and turned his head. He saw the ghost of the girl who had stabbed him. She had a pale face and dark eyes. She said in a whisper, "You're one of us now." She kissed him on the lips and he felt a sharp pain in his mouth. She bit off his tongue and swallowed it. He screamed in agony and tried to push her away, but she held him tight. She said, "Don't worry, it will be over soon." She stabbed him again and again until he stopped moving. She got up and looked at her work. She smiled and said, "Class dismissed." She walked out of the classroom and joined the other ghosts in the hall. They cheered and clapped for her. They said, "You did well, sister." They hugged her and welcomed her to their family. They decided to leave the school and look for more victims. They walked out of the building and into the night. They saw a car approaching on the road. It was a police car that had been sent to investigate the missing bus. They smiled and said, "Let's have some fun." They ran towards the car and attacked it. It was the last day of school before the summer break. Sam and his friends decided to stay late and explore the old building that was going to be demolished soon. They had heard rumors that it was haunted by the ghosts of the students and teachers who died there in a fire decades ago. They sneaked into the building and wandered around the dark corridors, looking for anything interesting. They found an old classroom with dusty desks and chairs, a blackboard, and a skeleton hanging from the ceiling. Sam dared his friends to go inside and sit on the desks. They agreed and entered the classroom, laughing nervously. Sam closed the door behind them and locked it. He said he would come back in 5 minutes and let them out. He wanted to scare them a little. He walked away from the door and waited for a few seconds. Then he heard screams coming from inside the classroom. He ran back to the door and tried to open it, but it was stuck. He banged on it and shouted, but no one answered. He looked through the window and saw a horrifying sight. The skeleton had come to life and was attacking his friends with its bony hands. It ripped their flesh and tore their limbs apart. Blood splattered on the walls and the floor. The blackboard was covered with words written in blood. "You're next." Sam felt a cold hand grab his shoulder and turned around. He saw a ghostly figure of a teacher holding a ruler. It had a burnt face and a twisted smile. It said in a raspy voice, "Class is not over yet." It raised the ruler and brought it down on Sam's head. Sam woke up with a start. He realized it was all a nightmare. He looked at his clock and saw that it was time to go to school. He got up and got ready, feeling relieved that it was just a bad dream. He met his friends at the bus stop and they boarded the bus together. They chatted about their plans for the summer break. Sam told them about his nightmare and they laughed at him. They arrived at school and saw that there was a crowd outside the old building. They wondered what was going on and went closer to see. They saw that the building was on fire. Smoke and flames were coming out of the windows. Firefighters were trying to put out the fire, but it was too late. The building was doomed. Sam felt a chill run down his spine. He remembered his nightmare and wondered if it was a premonition. He looked at the old classroom where he had dreamed of being attacked by the skeleton and the teacher. He saw something move inside the window. He saw a bony hand waving at him, followed by a burned face with a twisted smile.